Hey folks, David Stewart here. How do you identify, and just as importantly, how do you avoid acting like a person with artistic envy? This video is a little bit of a follow-up to a video I made last week on jealousy in the arts. This one is going to be a little bit more practical and focused on advice. I came up with 5 criteria that you can use to identify if somebody is acting in an envious manner towards you in the arts, or it may be like a covert narcissist or something like that. It's a pattern that I see pop up a lot. So here's the 5 criteria. First one is this person will be entrenched in a scene. Number 2, this person will ankle bite the successful. Number 3, this person wants to be an artistic professional himself. Number 4, this person will also have very little or no completed work to show for himself. And number 5, this person will be actively seeking attention or money while meeting those other criteria. So let me go through them and explain them a little bit more in depth. Number 1, entrenched in a scene. When I say a scene, I mean a group of artists that are working towards a common aesthetic goal, or maybe are in a local organization. Say there's a local punk scene. That could be a number of punk bands that play shows with each other, hang out with each other, talk to each other. It's a social organization that is a scene. So this person will be entrenched in that scene. They will have that scene be a large part of their identity. Like if they play in a punk band, they will consider themselves a punk, and they will look at the scene as something important to them, and they will actively work in that scene and actively try to protect that scene. It could also be a virtual scene, like a hashtag on Twitter or a group of Tumblr profiles that, reblog each other. They're part of a scene, and this person will be heavily entrenched in that. That is their goal with their behavior. This is especially true, say, with online profiles on Twitter that have the scene in their bio. That is their goal for being on Twitter. They are there to promote the scene and interact with the scene on some level. Number 2, the person will ankle bite the successful. So ankle biting the successful means somebody who's successful in the field will be the target of attacks, derision, either direct or indirect, and other kinds of things that are intended to make others aware of how much this person doesn't deserve their success. So if there's maybe a famous artist on Twitter, you'll respond to them posting their art with quips or insults. This person may make different kinds of Twitter accounts in order to screenshot the art in question and then tweet about how bad it is, or blog about it on Tumblr. They might write articles about a certain writer that they don't like, or a certain band that they don't like, that they don't consider true to the scene, or something like that. So that's what I mean by ankle biting the successful. They spend a large amount of their time attacking people who are more successful than them. And then, this can happen in a virtual space like Tumblr, or it can happen in a physical space, a local space like a local rock scene, a local punk scene, or a local art scene, where maybe during the social time, they really spend time talking to other people about how bad especially a not present third party happens to be. So the third criteria is wants to be an artistic professional himself or herself. This is a person who, besides being in the scene, is not necessarily just a fan of the scene. This person is trying to participate in the artistic output of the scene. So they might be part of a punk band. They might come to all the punk shows in a scene. They might know all the other punk bands, and they're trying to get their band to record an album. They're trying to get a band together. They maybe play a couple shows. They want to be an artistic professional themselves. If it's a visual artist, this person is trying to sell art. They're trying to actually produce output that people want to buy. That's an important element there. They want to be a professional, and they are trying to do that as a part of the scene. And this comes with part of the entrenched in a scene is that they are looking at the scene as a potential audience. Rather than looking at an audience that's interacting with the scene, they're looking at the scene itself as the audience. They're promoting whatever they're doing to the other people in the scene. They're talking about their art to other people in the scene, and they're not really putting it out into the world on the same level as somebody who's successful. The fourth one is they have little or no completed work to show for themselves, or him or herself. And what this really means is that there's very little output. And this is really a big source of the jealousy. So if we go back to that punk band example, they maybe don't have any recordings, so they've played very few shows, can't really keep the band together, not good at rehearsing. Maybe they played one show, or they've been rehearsing for months, and they still can't put anything out, can't get anything recorded. When they record it, it doesn't sound good enough, they don't put it out. That's going to be no completed work. Or you may have a visual artist that just has really low output. They show off their painting to the other people in the scene every couple of months and never have a gallery opening for themselves. And, they never try to sell their art. They're not really hustling to try to make a sale. If it's a writer, it'll be somebody who talks about writing a lot, like, does the am writing Twitter hashtag in the virtual space, but doesn't really publish any books. That's an example of somebody with no completed work to show for himself. And that's really relevant because when we get to the fifth one, seeks attention and or money, this attention seeking and the seeking for money is usually happening while there isn't any completed work to show for, either the group or the individual. So if you can imagine, maybe there's a comic artist and he wants to be an artist. He really wants to exist in the comic space. And so he comes up with an Indiegogo and has that Indiegogo on, say, his Tumblr page or his Twitter page, or is making YouTube videos about comics, and especially derisive videos where he's talking about how bad other artists are. And then he's always linking to his Indiegogo. And what's on that Indiegogo is maybe a couple of half-finished black and white drawings, and nothing really else. No completed book to sell, nothing on Amazon that somebody could buy and go read for themselves. What you get is a crowdfunding page that you hope people will give you money on, and that's about it. Or you might have, this is very, very common with kind of Tumblr writers and Twitter writers. They'll try to write a viral post and then they'll link a GoFundMe at the bottom, or they'll link a PayPal. Here's my PayPal, give me a donation, something like that. So they start seeking money and attention through the scene, hoping that the scene will amplify whatever they're doing. They'll get some return on it, and they'll be able to make a little bit of money. And they're trying to make that money before they have that product, and that's an important thing that I notice over and over again. So when you see all of these things put together, you're probably dealing with somebody who has a significant amount of this artistic envy, and maybe a covert narcissist. They may be a narcissist that's kind of reactive to other people. They're actively seeking to bring other people down. They may react really in an extreme way if they are confronted about what they're doing, or if somebody gives them any kind of feedback on what they're doing. They're like, yeah, I like your art, but you're using a little bit too many blacks on this. They'll be like, you're a horrible person. Blocked. That's what you're going to get for somebody who's got that vulnerable narcissism, I think is the other word that people use for it, vulnerable narcissism. So this is what it is. So that's how you can notice it. Now, how do you not act like that? Because everybody has some amount of narcissism, probably. People we like ourselves. So how do you not act like that? And if you have a tendency to act like that, how do you avoid acting like that? So you basically do something that's a little bit of the inverse of those five criteria. So number one is you cultivate your own audience, and you don't use the scene as a ready-made audience. You can interact with the scene in a social way, but you don't look at the scene as a way to provide you an audience. You don't go into that punk scene going, okay, all my punk band friends, I've been part of your scene, book me on your show and people will like me. And then I'll have your audience will know me and be my audience. No, you start cultivating your own audience. You make those opportunities for yourself. So that's the big one. And that means that you have to go out and find the customers that aren't part of the scene, the real customers, and get them to like your work independent of how they feel about other artists. Doesn't mean you can't be part of a scene. It just means that you're not using that scene for your audience itself. Number two would be, rather than sniping the successful, you actually ask the successful for their methods and secrets. And this operates on two different planes. The first one is you'll know how they became successful. If you say, hey, how did you build such a big audience? They'll probably tell you, because people are like that and they want to help other people, especially people they like. And actually asking them will make them like you more, because it's a sign of respect, and it's also just a sign of friendship. Hey, I want to know how you did this. Can you tell me? People love to share their success stories. They're like, yeah, this is how I built my audience. I did this, this, and this. And then you can think about whether you want to do that or if you want to do some variation of that. And you'll have an idea of where that success comes from. And you'll have a good relationship with the person who's successful. Number 3 is to be a professional rather than to act like you want to be a professional. So being a professional means a whole bunch of different things. It definitely means delivering your projects on time and under budget, which is going to be number 4. But it means some other things too, which is that you have to work towards completing your art. You have to actually work to improve your art and bring it up to a standard. You have to be okay putting off the paycheck until you've completed something for yourself. You have to be okay working consistently towards your goals. There's a whole bunch of things that go into being a professional. And you also have to be careful with your time, all those sorts of things. So you have to be a professional. Don't act like someone who wants to be a professional. You never want to be an aspiring writer. You want to just be a writer. If you write, you're a writer. Maybe you haven't published anything yet, but you're a writer and you need to work towards publication. Number 4, I already mentioned it, is complete your projects on time and under budget. This means that you have completed things to show for yourself. Before you start going out there and asking for money, before you start attempting to critique other people, and as you're working as part of a scene, before you start trying to entrench yourself in a scene, you need to have something that you've completed. Have some songs that you've finished recording, have a book that you've written, have a couple stories that you've written at least and published that people can read and become fans of your work with. That's really important. Complete your projects on time and under budget. That is part of being a professional as well. And the last one is you don't seek attention or money unless you have something to sell. So in other words, your attention-seeking behavior, because that's kind of what we do on the internet, that's kind of what this video is, right? I'm trying to get people's attention. You don't do that unless you have something really to sell. Okay, you should do that if you have something that you want people to buy. So you go out and you make a viral post on Tumblr, not so that people will give you money on PayPal, but so that they'll buy your book or they'll buy a print of your art or something like that. So you have a product that's something other than your social media profile. And you're not going to entrench yourself in a scene if you're not an artist in that scene. So you don't insert yourself into an artistic scene without already having a bunch of art that you want to exhibit or to work on as part of that scene, and whether it's music or anything else. So that's the ways that you can avoid acting like this. And it really could all just be summed up as be professional. Be a professional, and you will not be a person with artistic envy. In fact, your behavior will end up being the inverse of all that stuff that we don't like. So thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And of course, I have something to sell too, right? I got books. Here's the latest 2. There's like 10 other books that you can buy too, but here's the latest 2. City of Silver, Eyes on the Wall. This is darker kind of fantasy, and this is a horror book. Both of these are 99 cents for the ebook on Amazon. So check those out, and I will see you guys next time.